Echoes are the backbone of combat and exploration in The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. In this video, we're going to clue you in on some of the best echoes that you can get, not only to take down your enemies, but also help you traverse dungeons and even find the occasional heart piece. Later in the video, we'll list out some not so early echoes that you should look out for about mid to late game. But don't worry, we'll let you know before it gets too spoiler filled. Alright, let's get to it. While you'll solve most early puzzles with the old bed, which is a great echo that you cannot miss, you can miss the trampoline. The trampoline is a great ending piece to any old bed staircase or bridge. It gets you a bit more height than the table, and you can even use it to get to the top of trees, if that's your thing. The trampoline can be found in the southern village, right in front of the well. The flying tile can be used to cross big gaps if you hop on it. This helps a ton when crossing chasms or when trying to nab those hard to reach heart pieces. The flying tile can be easily missed if you're not paying attention, but luckily there is a side quest in Gerudo Desert that makes you aware of their existence, aptly called the Flying Tile, which starts in the Desert Oasis. You'll need access to the Gerudo Desert Dungeon, Gerudo Sanctum, to get this echo. Once you're past the rift inside the dungeon proper, you'll make your way through the first couple of rooms before finding the first warp point. Once you find it, head to the room to your left where you'll see the ground sparkle. Your instinct might be to just shield yourself from the flying tiles, but instead, run over to one to claim it for yourself. The Crawlchula is your key to going almost anywhere in Hyrule, thanks to its ability to rapidly scale cliffs and walls. Simply summon one at the base of a high wall, grab it with bind, and then hold R to follow along with the Crawlchula as it climbs up and over nearly any barrier or mountain in Hyrule. Perfect for those hard to reach heart pieces. The Crawlchula is also an excellent early fighter, but more on that later. The Crawlchula can be found north of Southern Village in the southern prairie of Hyrule Field. The Bombfish is your bomb-adjacent echo in Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom, and it's perfect for getting through those famous Legend of Zelda cracked walls. Also, don't fret, while enemy bombfishes can hurt you, your bombfish won't, so there's no reason to sprint away while waiting for it to detonate. When on dry land, the bombfish will hop around, sometimes wandering away from its destination. Avoid this by lifting it up and letting it explode in your hands, or by using Tri's bind ability to keep it in place. The bombfish can be found on the way to the River Zora's village. You'll spot a cave to the left of the massive rift. Inside, you'll see a sign warning folks not to bother with the bombfish. Ignore that warning and take out the bombfish with an Octorok to claim it as your own. Combat echoes are any echoes in your arsenal that you'll mainly be using for fighting. This list includes the best ones to nab early. The Crow is a seemingly plain enemy that steals rupees from the enemies it attacks, meaning you get a lot more rupees when using the Crow versus any other echo, alongside having the aerial advantage on anything that you're fighting. They're also a cheap summon at just 2 tri-power. Even in late game, we were spamming Crow echoes constantly to amass large amounts of rupees. Keep in mind, a Crow only steals with the first attack on that target. Crows will also try to pick up the rupees that they drop, so you'll need to beat them to the punch. You can get a Crow very early, as you'll be forced to walk through a pathway filled with them as you adventure into Gerudo Desert. The Peahat is a tough battle in the first part of the game, but then can be used to wipe the floor with most enemies, especially moblin camps. The Peahat has a semi-slow spin-up time, but once it gets moving, it'll clear screens of enemies with ease, especially if they're grouped up. You can easily find a Peahat early by traveling to Southern Forest Cave 3, which is just south of the Southern Forest Warp Point. Your basic source of fire for torch puzzle solving, the Ignazol, is also super deadly. Light one off near any enemy to catch it on fire and slowly damage it, or quickly damage it if it's a plant like a Peahat. It also burns grass and crates, revealing secrets. Ignazol can also be picked up and thrown at your enemies, or you can use Tri's bind function to push it into foes. Ignazol is found right at the outset of Zelda's adventure in the Southern Cave. I told you I'd be talking about this guy again. The Crawlchula is a really aggressive echo that will bully your enemies until they drop. It has a quick attack speed and will constantly be pressing up against its targets even when it's not attacking. In the early game, this was one of our favorite ways to take enemies down quickly. Wolfos is a fairly basic tank echo that will dodge around and lunge at your enemies. But its survivability is what makes it stand out. It can take a few more hits than Crawlchula and will actually dodge some of those attacks. Wolfos can be found in Hyrule Field. You'll find it just north of the opening pathway into Hyrule Field, east of Hyrule Ranch. Chompfin is probably the best underwater echo you can find, especially in the early game. We'd even go to say that Chompfin is basically required to make it through Jabul Water's dungeon. You can get by on the regular snapping fish, but Chompfin will absolutely put everything else to shame. Not only is this echo capable of dealing high amounts of damage, but will also dodge and tank a lot of enemy attacks as well. Compared to any other swimmer, Chompfin is a must-have. Chompfin can be found southwest of Seaside Village, near a shipwreckage. He's tough to take down, but there's a cheese to him. If you can surround him with Octorok echoes, he'll essentially be unable to move, as Octorok pelts will stun an enemy. It especially helps if you can get him pinned up against a wall. Octoroks aren't particularly strong, but with enough of them pelting Chompfin, he'll go down soon enough. Just like the first half of this video, we'll be going over a few essential echoes to help you get through the mid to late game. So just be warned, any echoes beyond this point will lean a bit more on the spoiler side. Before we get into any combat or exploration, I want to do a special mention to make sure to echo Zelda's bed after completing Hyrule Castle. Just like the old beds, resting in Zelda's bed will replenish your hearts, but at a much faster rate than the original old bed. So make sure to snag it before leaving Zelda's chambers. Alright, let's start with a selection of excellent echoes that will aid you in exploring tough areas of Hyrule, followed by some of the most powerful echoes in the game. The water block will essentially replace any forms of bed stacking you may have done before. In fact, it's almost fair to say that the water block will trivialize a lot of your future platform puzzles for now. The water block, which can be built upwards or in any direction, allows you to stack blocks of water for Zelda to swim through. When built across a gap, you can even spawn them as you move through it. The only thing you'll need to watch out for is destroying the water block that's connected to the dry land, meaning the entire thing will collapse if you try to spawn too many and break the base. Enemies can also destroy a water block tower as well, so you'll need to be quick if you're using it to escape. The water block echo is an unmissable echo you'll receive to complete the stilled Jabul Waters rift. While not easy to miss, you'll be forgiven if you didn't think to attack these thwomp-like platform enemies to claim its echo. The Platboom can easily lift you to get some high-up heart pieces and ledges in the overworld when you spawn at once. You'll eventually be able to spawn 2 at a time once you get 6 tri-power, but by the time you have this much tri-power, you'll already have access to the Cloud Echo probably, which we'll cover next. Here's how to get the Platboom. Once you enter the minor rift that appears before the Gerudo Sanctum during the main quest, head down a hole in the ground to find a side-scrolling room with Platbooms that drop from the ceiling. Attack them from the side to defeat them and claim them as your own. You can also find Platboom in the cave just north of Gerudo Town, called Cave 2, which also holds a heart piece. The Cloud Echo is the be-all end-all of world exploration. Spawn one, then the next one in succession, and as long as you keep moving or jumping, you can climb infinitely high or travel infinitely far in the air. The only reason this echo isn't mentioned earlier is due to how late in the game you'll receive it, as it's tucked away in the frigid cold Hebra Mountains. Once you reach the stilled Hebra Mountains, the Cloud Echo will be pretty much everywhere. Nab one and claim it as your own. Alright, time for some of the best combat echoes you'll find in all of the game. The Re-Deads are very annoying to fight, as they shriek to paralyze enemies, stunning both Zelda and any echoes you might have on the field. Having one on your side, however, rules, as they have a really strong attack, and of course will shriek to stun anything around them. Their shriek has a fairly lengthy cooldown, which can be shortened by respawning them once it's over. It's also a very powerful combo to have enemies stunned while you whack away at them in your Link form. You'll encounter your first Re-Dead in Gerudo Desert Oasis Ruins. The Mothula and its stronger sibling, Mothula Level 2, are both powerful flying enemies. Use them to take out flying or even ground enemies, as they'll adjust their height after spawning to match their foe. Their charge is strong and fast but has a bit of a cooldown. Don't wait for the cooldown. Instead, constantly respawn Mothulas to keep it attacking without having to wait. Mothulas can be found fairly easily in the Gerudo Sanctum dungeon, but the more powerful level 2 version won't show up until after you've reached the Stilled Farron wetlands, just east of the Farron dungeon. The Ball and Chain Trooper is an excellent addition to your arsenal, especially in the mid-game. Once dropped, he'll spin his flail, damaging any and all enemies around him. This is usually enough to take out some weaker enemies, but if some do survive, he'll end his spin with a big thrust, absolutely devastating enemies in its range. The Ball and Chain Trooper also has excellent defense. He is an armored-clad warrior, but beyond that, he's almost impossible to even hit. You know, because of all the flail spinning. The only downside is that he moves incredibly slow, and after thrusting his flail, it'll get stuck in the ground for a moment. Of course, you can just avoid this by respawning him. The Ball and Chain Trooper can be found in the second level of the basement in Hyrule Castle Dungeon. You'll have to face one after making your way through a few stealth sections. The Sword Moblin level 3 may be the best all-purpose fighter in Echoes of Wisdom. It can even take down tough bosses and not take any damage at all from lesser creatures. A strong tank? Sign us up. You'll find Sword Moblins fairly easily throughout your adventure, but the level 3 version is locked inside Cave 2 in the Hebra Mountain. Continue east past Condi's house. You will follow a path past a Moblin camp, and then continue up northeast through many ice spikes. Stand at these with the Ignazal Echo in hand to melt them, then enter Cave 2 and prepare for a fight. And lastly, the Lynel Echo is potentially one of the final echoes that you'll collect. And even if you stumble upon him early, it takes a whopping 6 points of tri-energy to summon him. That all aside, the Lynel has great offensive power and quite a bit of health, allowing it to tank hits for you if you stay behind it. It's immune to the shocked, frozen, and burning status effects as well, so it's great against Wizrobes and other elemental enemies, but will come up short around environmental hazards like deep water or lava, like most echoes. The Lynel also does damage with its charge, so summon it near you to give it enough distance to pick up speed before it goes slicing at its foes. It can also hit air targets and has a strong jump attack to reach enemies on higher ground. The Lynel is a great choice for clearing out enemies fast, which is all too important for beating challenges quickly to earn all the rewards at the Slumber Dojo in Kakariko Village. The Lynel can be found in the Eternal Woods in north-central Hyrule. You should see some horseshoe prints in the dirt just southeast of the fast travel point that's deeper into the actual Eternal Woods region, northwest of the one at the entrance to it. If you walk in the direction of those, you'll find more, and if you follow them on a winding path through the woods, it will eventually lead you to a clearing in the top right. This area is usually empty, if you reach it from, say, crossing to it from the treetops. But if you followed the path, the Lynel will be waiting there to be fought. The Lynel is a big, strong enemy, so you should try to bring your strongest echoes. Dark Nut level 3, Sword Moblin level 3 are perfect for this, or even a P-Hat. You can also damage the Lynel in your Link form. And that's going to do it for some of the best echoes you can find in Zelda's first official outing. Make sure to sound off in the comments below to let us know what echoes you love using. For more on Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, make sure to head on over to IGN.com to check out our growing Echoes of Wisdom wiki and interactive map. Here you'll find dungeon walkthroughs, map markers which can be used to find echoes, fairy bottles, heart pieces, and more. And of course, for everything else video games, stick with IGN.